are many who, although they are men without name or reputation, act freely and on the slightest provocation as if they had prophetic ecstasies, both in sacred matters and elsewhere. Others wander about as beggars in cities and camps, presenting the same spectacle. On the lips of each one of them the words come freely. I am God, or God's Son, or God's Spirit. I have come, for the end of the world is in sight, and you men are going to destruction for your injustices. But I will save you, and you will soon see me come again with celestial power. Blessed is he that honours me now. I will give all the rest to the eternal fire, cities as well as countries and men. Those who now refuse to recognise the judgment that awaits them will then be of a different mind and sigh, but in vain. And those that believed in me, those will I keep forever. They intersperse these high-sounding threats with strange, half-crazy and absolutely incomprehensible words, so obscure and meaningless that no one can make sense of them, no matter how ingenious he is. But any fathead or loafer can interpret them as he pleases. These pretended prophets, whom I have heard with my own ears more than once, I have argued with, and they have confessed their weaknesses and admitted that they invented their unintelligible words themselves.
Well, now that you know where the SWP get their scripture. It was not long before the apostles became a class of people. In fact, one apostle started writing out guidelines about other apostles. He actually wrote to various Jewish communities and saying, if an apostle visits you, it is good that you should feed him for up to 3 days, but if he stays any longer, he's not a genuine apostle. Incidentally, they then had another class of people called prophets, and they were allowed to stay 2 weeks and be fed, and then they had to go. It was a very good system of parasitism. So these apostles began to stand above the proletarians who had given rise to Christianity, to be kept by the proletarian Christians. By the 3rd century AD, a class of bishops emerged, and their job was to define the Christian faith. This process of definition in the 3rd century coincided with an attempt by the bishops to accommodate the new faith into the moral needs of the Roman Empire. So, class hatred began to give way to class charity in order to keep in with the Roman emperors. It was no longer said that you should oppose the rich, but it was in fact said that the rich should give generously to the poor. The community of goods was replaced by the symbol of the Mass, where each believer shares in the symbolic eating of the bread and the wine, and then goes away with the rich Christians having rather more bread and wine than the poor ones. The abolition of the poor was replaced as an idea by care for the poor. Christianity, which had started as a dangerous threat to the morality of trade, became a morality of submission. It became a morality which would be used to keep the urban proletarians in their place, accepting that the poor will always be with us. And all of the biblical writings from the 4th century onwards betray this new ruling class Christianity. In the 4th century AD, the final stage in its accommodation arrived, and Christianity was adopted by the Roman Emperor Constantine, with all the perversity of the King of England who proclaimed that we're all socialists now. Since then, I've no need to tell you how many people's interests have been stamped on and ignored and ruined by the ruling classes who have used the sweet-smelling morality of Christianity to their own advantage. How many millions have been sent to die in wars, allegedly between one interpretation of God's word and another? Wars where cannons and aeroplanes have been blessed by priests holding the Bible. Well, my conclusion, Comrade Chairman, is that religion is and must be, as Marx said it was, the opium of the people. It is an ideology which is necessary in a society where the majority is dispossessed. And you cannot attack religion unless you attack that social context. At best, religion represents the impotent side of the oppressed. At worst, it represents the manipulative fraudulence of the oppressors. Socialists cannot be indifferent to religion. We can't look the other way and hope that it goes away, because it is the ideological covering of property societies. And one cannot be opposed, neither can one support property society without supporting some aspect of the religious outlook. One cannot oppose the religious outlook seriously without opposing property society. In conclusion, I want to draw two specific points, two lessons from the historical process of the rise of Christianity which I've examined. Firstly, and it's a very obvious one from some of what I've said, the danger of revolutionary movements becoming accommodated into the status quo. This happens all the time. Movements of dissent become sucked into the status quo, just as the proletarian movement of Christianity became sucked in to the needs of the Roman ruling class. All ideas, even the most radically seeming dissenting ideas, can become stolen by the ruling class who control the means of mental communication. And the socialist tradition itself has not been free from this danger. One only has to read certain so-called revolutionary publications which start on the front page demanding the whole of the bakery, and by the back page they're just asking for a few more crumbs, to see how it is that it's very simple to slip from the idea of challenging the whole system to the idea of a pathetic kind of reform. Now, Engels wrote an article on the history of primitive Christianity in a German Marxist newspaper in the last century, in 1894. And in it he says this: "The history of primitive Christianity presents remarkable coincidences with the modern workers' movement. Like the latter, Christianity was originally a movement of the oppressed. It first appeared as a religion of slaves and freedmen, of the poor, of the outcast, of the people subjected or dispersed by Rome. Both Christianity and socialism preach an approaching redemption from servitude and misery. Christianity assigns this redemption to a future life in heaven after death. Socialism would attain it in this world by a transformation of society. Both are hunted and persecuted, their adherents outlawed, subjected to special legislation, represented in the one case as enemies of the human race, in the others as enemies of the nation, religion, the family, of the social order. And in spite of all persecutions, in some cases even aided to victory by such persecutions, both advance irresistibly. 3 centuries after its beginning, Christianity is the recognized state religion of the Roman Empire, and is barely 60 years, and in barely 60 years, socialism has conquered a place that renders its victory absolutely certain. But there is a crucial difference. Whereas the Christian idea was a utopian one, an idealistic one, a looking outside of human behaviour for the solution, socialism is a human one. Socialists have no need for gods. It's not that we morally or sentimentally object to the concept of God. We don't need gods, and therefore we don't have gods. We are the makers of history. We are the gods. God is supposed to have made the world in 7 days. In fact, the evolution of the world has taken millions of years. It will take us a little more than 7 days to make a socialist world, a world worth living in. But with our eyes straight ahead, rather than up at the heavens, the society we create will have little need for the ignorant mythology and the harmless fantasies of religion.